my approach tends to be rather strongly rooted in history. And I tend to see the work that we do as simply slipping into a continuum of art and artists that began thousands of years ago. And from the time that I was very young, I was fascinated with the symbols that I would see in church and on church things, and always wanted to understand what they were. What did they mean? And describing a symbol is very different from knowing actually what that symbol is pointing to. And of course, icons are one of our greatest examples of that. They are not what is, but they point to what they portray, right? Am I saying that correctly? Yeah. Mary Jane, am I saying that correctly? Okay. But I'm a great student of art history related to church art. And John Paul II, in his letter, there was a section where he was talking about renewing the dialogue with artists. And it's interesting, and because I share Catholicism as my family faith. But as an adult, it's not fully formed in me. And yet there are so many things in this letter that I find kind of ubiquitous and universal. And so John Paul was talking about, there's been a Christian humanism in recent years, and also another kind of humanism that's sort of an absence or an opposition to God, which I would agree with. And that's part of why I keep trying to use some of the older symbols of our faith in my work, because if we don't continue to use that vocabulary, pretty soon people won't know how to speak the language. And it is a dying language. Mind you, I say that full on knowing it's also important, very important, for sacred artists to be working without those symbols and to be creating from entirely new voices and an entirely evolving vocabulary. So I embrace both, but it's that history that I feel the language is getting, there are fewer and fewer speakers. And so he goes on to say, let's see, artists have less interest in religious themes, but he's saying the church has not lost interest in art. Well, that might be true for his church or a few of his churches, because that's definitely not true, at least in America. And he says art can be the bridge to a religious experience. It can appeal to the mystery and give voice to the universal desire for redemption. And enough said. Art absolutely can be a bridge to the mystery that none of us can define, yet all of us seek. And so that's my sweet spot. That's not actually producing that kind of art, but encouraging that kind of art. And that's partly why I want to host these two conversations about living more deeply into that kind of a call. You know, how do we posture ourselves in our lives and in our art practice to own our call to do that? I mean, to really own it, to look in the mirror and face that, you know, all of you sitting smiling at me have a call from God, and yet you're still just breathing and doing the dishes. Sister Corita Kent would say, first ecstasy, then the laundry, right? And that's our reality. That's our call. And I think, I'll put this in my terms, I think we have a rather profound obligation to try to sort that out.